Good morning. So it's pretty easy to lie or manipulate with statistics, to take the numbers, find the number that works to sell the case, and then put that number out as if it tells the whole story. And that's a common thing I see, especially recently. I've seen a lot, and it's been done forever. Even with studies or reports, statistics that I agree with, I still see this technique used. It's pretty common because people want to prove their point, make their case, sell their whatever it is, and so they use this trick. So essentially what it is take two numbers that are already really small and then calculate the difference as a percentage. So here's an example. Let's say I have 1/4 and then I'm vacuuming out the seats of my car, and on the floor I find another 1/4. So I just doubled my net worth. My bank account increased by 100%. Wow, that sounds like a big number, even though I only went up by 25 cents. 50 cents can't buy much. Can't go into any restaurant that I know of and actually buy anything. Most stores even, I can't think of anything other than the dollar store where 50 cents can buy anything. But expressed as a percentage, 100%, that sounds huge. And then vice versa, if I lose 1/4, oh my gosh, 50% of my income just disappeared. I lost 50% of my net worth. What am I going to do? Even though it's only 25 cents expressed as a percentage, it sounds much bigger and much more significant, especially if the context is removed and we don't say what it is. That percentage seems huge. And so that's how they do it. And so I've seen this a lot with math studies. So let's take a look. One of the biggest or most popular math studies was the Danish math study referred to as Unmasking 19. So here, I Googled it. See at the top, Unmasking 19, and then here's what Google presented me. And so if I click on the top link here, or if we just look at the thing, the description doesn't say a lot. It says effectiveness, random. We can't really see from looking at the descriptions what they say, except we get down to this one and it says, the first trial of COVID-19 mask was negative. Mask didn't work. We knew this before the trial was published. So if we go back to the top, let's say we click on the first link. Here it is, Annals of Internal Medicine. And so the first sentence says, observational evidence suggests that wearing masks mitigates COVID. And it's like, does it? Why do they come out with this sentence right off the bat? If we look at the data, the actual results, it says 3,030 participants were randomly assigned to be recommended to wear masks. And then 2,994 were the control group, the group that didn't wear masks. And so if we add these two numbers up, we get 5,900. And then the people that actually completed the study was only 4,800. So a lot of people dropped out or just said, the heck with it, I'm done with this. And then the actual numbers, the tests positive, people that wore masks, it was 1.8%. People that didn't wear masks, 2.1%. The difference between the groups, 0.3%. 0.3%. They say this shows that it works. This is what I mean by lying with statistics. It's super frustrating for me when I see this, because it's obvious they don't work. 0.3%. Imagine a box of condoms that said this thing is going to reduce pregnancy or the risk of STDs by 0.3%. Would anybody wear one? Imagine the government passing a law saying everyone had to use a birth control that was 0.3% effective. It's absurd. And here they go on to say that the CI, which is, if we go over here, look it up, it says CI is confidence interval. So we go back and it says 95% confident that this is accurate results. 0.3%. But then they go on down here at the bottom, they state it as a 46% reduction and a 23% increased infection. Now, if we put these numbers out there, that sounds huge. 46% reduction. Wow. Again, with the quarters, if I lose one, 46%. Wow. But again, 0.3%. And then just overall, mask or no mask, we're talking about 1.8% and 2%. It's small numbers to begin with. And then the difference is ridiculously small. I mean, 0.3%, it's, all right, so moving on, go to another study, and then here, just looking at the picture, it kind of seems like they're going to say that masks work. So this one, more matter-of-factly, again, they show the, primary outcome, 1.8, 2.1, and, 95% confident that's accurate. So they say 0% and 0.2% on the PCR test. Healthcare diagnosed, 0.2% and 0.4%. The antibodies, 1.3, 1.5, 1.4, 1.3. And compared with 10 participants, 0.4%. Again, tiny numbers. This other thing down here is they say that the secondary outcome, positive for one or more of the 11 respiratory viruses. So it means mask or no mask, they still tested positive for a bunch of other stuff. And the difference between mask and no mask is 0.5 and 0.6. So a difference of 0.1%, whether you wear a mask or don't. And then these guys were honest enough to say our conclusions suggest that wearing a mask does not reduce. But then this is for me, this is the ridiculous part. Like at the bottom here, it says the findings, however, should not be used to conclude that a recommendation for everyone to wear masks in the community would not be effective. The study says they're not effective, so why do they still go on to say they are? It's just ridiculous. And here is a government website, NCBI, U.S. National Library of Medicine, National Institute of Health. And then the title is, mask mandates in light of Unmasking 19. Basically, even though the study says they don't work, we're going to do it anyway. The other thing that's interesting to note is that among the 6,000 participants in the study, 46% and 47% proper adherence to mask use. To me, that says that less than half the people actually did it the way you're supposed to do it. So what it essentially says is even if they're mandating masks, less than half the people are actually doing it the way you're supposed to be doing it. That's just, so like common sense says that even if you force people to do something, they're not going to do it right, so it doesn't work anyway. And down here at the bottom it says the effect of masks is compelling. And then, I don't know, they go on to talk about it's not the actual ban, but all this other stuff, basically blah, 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 blah. The masks, we can't find any data to say that masks work, but we're still going to make you wear them because that's what we do. When I go to the CDC website to look up the statistics, I often see a link to the JAMA network. And so they did this thing, the spread of misinformation about face masks and COVID-19. And they go on to say that we selected the Unmasking 19 because it was widely discussed. It was the 5th most shared research article of all time as of March 2021. And they even go on to say again, it demonstrated that masks are an important public health measure to control the pandemic. No, it didn't. But they keep repeating that lie. And they go on, in their study to see about bots and how the mask was responded, they talk about how they were looking for 2 types of what they call misinformation, whether the primary conclusion of the Unmasking study was misrepresented, e.g. mask wearing harms the wearer, or saying that, conspiratorial claims made about it, that it was, political corporate control. I'm pretty sure both those are true. I mean, I don't know, for me, the ironic part is they're looking at talking about political corporate control, conspiracy. And yet this article says that masks work when the data says it doesn't. And then they have the nerve to talk about people, are conspiracy theorists if they don't believe the lie. And so there was another study recently, a Bangladesh mask study. And so Google search it. Here's what comes up. The first one is from Nature. Face masks, largest test yet. Rigorous study finds that surgical masks are highly protective, but cloth masks fall short. And then when we look at the numbers, it's kind of ridiculous to even make the distinction. Second link, masks not only help save lives, but also prove to be, who knows what they say. Researchers found that surgical masks impede the spread of COVID-19. A growing body of scientific evidence suggests that face masks can protect against COVID-19. The effectiveness of masks in preventing COVID-19 has been supported by a result, 300,000 people, that's proof. And in the Google search, nothing that is critical or controversial or tries to, there's no other side. It's all pro-mask results. There's nothing. But then if I go over to DuckDuckGo, similar, 1, 2, 3, but then the fourth hit on DuckDuckGo says mass study, do not believe the hype. So Google filters out anyone who's critical of these studies. But then DuckDuckGo is more balanced, and they actually show the other side. People have a bone to pick, or people who know that there's something wrong with the study, and they put it in there, so at least we get to see it. We get to make up our minds for ourselves. Then here, Yale. The study found that masks significantly lower symptomatic infections, especially among older people. Let's see how much BS that is. So if we go to the first Google link, which is Nature, face masks protect against COVID-19. That's the conclusion of a gold standard clinical trial. So there it is, the gold standard. Can't possibly have any, wrong in this. It's totally proves it. Nearly 350,000 people. But how far do we have to go to get to the numbers? The study links surgical masks with an 11% drop in risk and a 5% drop for cloth. So they're saying that between the surgical N95 type masks and a regular piece of cloth, there's a 6% difference. And they're saying that the 5 and 11% are actually real numbers. So how far down do we have to keep going before we get to the actual numbers, not the percentages based on the difference between, so here we don't get to see the real numbers. And the Nature article doesn't even show them. Now, so let's see, where's the actual, I think the actual study is, or the people that published it might have been Stanford. So what does Stanford Medicine have to say about this? Researchers found that surgical masks impede the spread of COVID-19. $350,000 people, 600 villages. Again, the 11% surgical masks reduce your risk. And then here's an interesting study that the guy who took this study apart pointed out. The protective effect increased to nearly 35% if you're over 60. So apparently, according to this study, they're saying that if you're over 60, a mechanical thing works better. A mask works better. Somehow the masks know whether or not you're over 60 or under 50 and can therefore protect you better if you're over 60. That's what this study is claiming. So that right there is a big tip-off that something might be amiss. We saw the largest impact on older people who are at greater risk of death from COVID. So how exactly does a mask work better if you're older? Like how does that make any sense whatsoever? So if we get to the actual numbers, so here it is. People who consented to blood collection and tested positive to the virus, 0.76% in people who didn't do the mask in the control group. And then in the control group, the people who wore the mask, 0.68%. So positive tests are well less than 1%. We're talking a fraction of a percent here. And the difference between the two is 0.08%. And then even among, they go up here further, notice it's way at the bottom. All this other stuff is up here, but the number above this, it says 7.6% of people in the intervention villages reported symptoms. You know, I assume that would be fever, aches, you know, some kind of sore throat, something like that. And then in the mask, or no, yeah, in the people that wore masks, it was 7.6%. The people who didn't wear masks, that village is 8.6%. So people who are reporting symptoms, there's only a 1% difference. And who knows, you know, it's self-reporting system. They're self-reporting systems, so it could be anything. You know, there's plenty of times where I wake up in the morning and I might feel something in my throat or my head hurts, and then it goes away by the end of the day. You know, maybe I was around someone who had a horrible cough yesterday, and so I'm all, oh man, am I going to get it? And then wake up like kind of paranoid, and then by the end of the day or a few days later, nothing happens, and so it was all in my head. You know, I just didn't feel good for a while. So who knows? But, you know, among the actual tests that they did, we're talking about 0.76 and 0.68%. It's just so ridiculously small. You know, again, they go straight to percentages, 9.3%. And down here they say the reduction of risk is 11%. So if we bring up the calculator, we take 0.76 minus 0.68. That gives us 0.08%. And if we divide that by the 0.68, we get 0.11, which is 11%. That's where they're getting this 11% number. And so for me, you know, even the difference between 0.76 and 0.68, you know, it's the statistical trick. Like referring to that as an 11% increase is ridiculous. I mean, these numbers are both less than 1%. It's tiny to begin with. You know, and even if it was 11%. You know, again, imagine a box of condoms and on there it says, these may reduce your risk of pregnancy or STDs by 11%. You know, would you wear one? Would you feel safe? 11%? That means an 89% that it's going to do absolutely nothing. How about if you're an electrician or you're going to work with some hot wires or some, you know, high voltage lines, and you're going to have to grab them because they're live, and you got a pair of electrician's gloves that are supposed to insulate you, and on the gloves it says these may reduce your risk of electrocution, of dying by 11%. You know, is anybody going to trust that? It's no. Why would you? That's, you know, you might say, oh, it'll help a little, but to like make the entire world do something based on 11%, even though that's a BS number. How about the 0.08%, like making people do something because of that tiny little number? That what kind of sense does that make? That means 99.92%, it's ineffective for them. It's ridiculous. What about the guy who takes this study apart? I don't know who this person is. This first time reading him, you know, but it came up number 4. And so I read through the whole article, and you can go ahead and read yourself. And he, you know, this person apparently knows something about how studies are supposed to be conducted and how you can tell if it's garbage in, garbage out, that kind of thing. And this guy really takes it apart and goes on to say its output is not even sound enough to be wrong. It's complete gibberish. So I don't know the ins and outs and all the technical details of how a study's going to be run. You know, for me, I just look at the simple math and like I see 0.08% or 11% or less than 1%. I'm like, come on, like really? Like you're going to hang your hat on something that small? How can we practice more discernment? That's what I'd like to see. So thanks for watching. I hope this helps.